Nostalgia is a lie. Have you ever noticed something strange? The older a memory gets, the better it seems. An old song, a childhood home, a friend you haven't spoken to in years. Somehow, the further away these things become, the more special they feel. That's weird, right? Because if you actually went back and lived through those moments again, you'd probably discover they weren't nearly as perfect as you remember. So why does the past seem better than it really was? Why do we miss places we couldn't wait to leave? Why do people look back on stressful periods of their lives and call them the good old days? It turns out nostalgia is doing something very strange. Because nostalgia isn't really showing you the past, it's showing you an edited version of it. And the reason why might completely change how you think about your memories. Recently, I came across a quote that made me stop scrolling. Nostalgia is memory without the pain. At first, it sounded clever. One of those quotes people share because it feels true. But the more I thought about it, the stranger it became. Because when I think about the things I'm nostalgic for, I don't miss the difficult parts. I don't miss the stress. I don't miss the uncertainty. I don't miss the problems that felt enormous at the time. And yet somehow, those periods of my life feel beautiful now. Oddy noticed something interesting about humans. You spend years wanting the next chapter, then spend years missing the last one. As children, we want to be older. As teenagers, we want freedom. As adults, we miss being young. It's almost like we're never standing in the moment we'll eventually miss. We only realize it after it's gone. Think about your childhood home. Not birthdays, not holidays, not the highlights. Just the house itself. The hallway, the kitchen, the view from your bedroom window. For many people, those places feel almost magical. But here's a question. If you could go back and spend an average Tuesday there, would it actually feel magical? Probably not. You'd wake up, eat breakfast, get bored, maybe argue with someone, watch TV, go to bed. Just another ordinary day. The magic wasn't in the moment. The magic appeared later. So what changed? The house didn't. You did. Most people think memory works like a recording. Something happens. Your brain stores it. Years later, you replay it. Simple. Except that's not how memory works. Not even close. Your brain doesn't store memories like videos. It stores pieces, a smell, a feeling, a sound, a face, an emotion, and every time you remember something, your brain rebuilds the memory from those pieces. Imagine taking apart a puzzle and rebuilding it every single time you look at it. That's much closer to what's actually happening. Scientists call this process reconsolidation, and it reveals something fascinating. Every time you remember an event, that memory becomes flexible for a short period, editable, changeable, before your brain stores it again, which means your memories aren't frozen in time. They're constantly evolving. You are not replaying the past. You're rebuilding it again and again and again. This becomes even stranger when you realize your brain isn't trying to preserve the past perfectly. It's trying to help you survive the future. Those are very different goals. A perfect memory would remember everything equally. Every awkward conversation, every embarrassing mistake, every boring afternoon, every stressful moment, forever. But imagine carrying the emotional weight of every painful experience you've ever had. At full intensity, you'd never move forward. You'd be trapped. So your brain does something remarkable. It starts letting go. Psychologists call this the fading affect bias, and it's one of the most consistent findings in memory research. Over time, the emotional impact of negative experiences tends to fade faster than positive ones. The event itself might stay, but the emotional sting weakens. Think about school. A lot of people say they miss school, but what exactly do they miss? The homework? The exams? The early mornings? The awkward presentations? Probably not. They miss the friendships, the excitement, the feeling that life was still full of possibilities. Their brain kept the meaning and gradually let go of much of the discomfort. The same thing happens with old relationships. Sometimes people say they miss someone, but when they really think about it, what they miss isn't necessarily the person. It's the version of themselves that existed back then. The feeling, the hope, the possibility. Nostalgia blends all those things together until they become difficult to separate. And that's why nostalgia feels so convincing. Because it isn't preserving reality, it's preserving significance. Stories are cleaner than reality. Reality is messy. Reality contains boredom, confusion, contradictions. Stories don't. Stories have meaning. And humans need meaning. Because none of us are the same person we were 10 years ago. Your opinions changed. Your habits changed. Your priorities changed. Maybe your entire life changed. And yet somehow, you still feel like you. Why? Because your brain is constantly building a story that connects all those different versions of yourself together. And nostalgia is one of the tools it uses. It's stitching the chapters together, creating continuity, turning thousands of disconnected moments into something that feels like a life. Which brings us back to the original question. If nostalgia is changing our memories, why would our brains do that? Why not just remember things exactly as they happened? Because accuracy isn't always the goal. Meaning is, when researchers study nostalgia, they find something surprising. People experiencing nostalgia often report feeling less lonely, more connected, more optimistic. The past isn't simply being remembered, it's being used. Your brain is reaching backwards to help you move forwards. It's reminding you that you've survived uncertainty before, that you've adapted before, that you've grown before. The childhood you miss was probably harder than you remember. The people you miss were probably more complicated. The good old days were probably less good. But maybe that's not the point, because nostalgia was never designed to be a perfect record of your life. If it was, you'd remember every boring afternoon with equal clarity, every awkward conversation, every stressful day. Instead, your brain searches for meaning out of thousands of ordinary moments. It quietly keeps the ones that mattered, the moments that shaped you, the moments that changed you, the moments that helped make you who you are. And maybe that's the biggest lie nostalgia tells. Not that the past was better, but that the best parts of life are behind you. Because if an ordinary moment can become a cherished memory years later, then something incredible is happening right now. At this very moment, a future version of you is going to miss something about today. A conversation, a routine, a place, a person, something that feels completely ordinary right now. One day, it won't. One day, it'll be a memory, and your brain will place it alongside all the other moments that mattered. Not because it was perfect, because it was part of your story. And maybe that's the real purpose of nostalgia. Not to pull you backwards, not to convince you that life used to be better, but to remind you that your life has meaning, that you've grown, that you've changed, that you've come further than you realize. So no, nostalgia isn't the truth. It's something stranger. It's the story your mind tells when it looks back at where you've been. And maybe that's okay, because sometimes the value of a memory isn't in how accurately it captures the past, but in what it helps you see about yourself. That's one of our oddities. The ability to look at an imperfect past and find gratitude in it.